Hi, my name is Inese, and I come from Brasa neighborhood in Riga. And we do a lot of similar things as Goda told before, in a way, but what we don't have really is a space. At least we didn't have for quite a long time. And at one point we had a small cafe, which was like a tiny fraction of this building. And then right now what we do have is a place in the basement that has several rooms where you can do like seminars or workshops, but where we also have at least in Riga we have this way that people order food from outside, from the countryside, and once a week it's brought from all kind of little countryside farms, yeah. So that's one thing that we also do in this place, this basement. But the one thing that I wanted to talk to you about is a project we managed last year. The thing with our neighborhood is that we don't have like a public inside space available, nothing that belongs to municipality, you know. Okay, maybe there are some kindergartens, but they are sort of close to the public, and schools are also not really like an open space where the community could come together. But we do have a lot of green spaces that are sort of specific because a large part of the neighborhood is an old cemetery that was quite abandoned. For a long time it was abandoned and nobody took care of it, so it just gets demolished in a way by vandals, by itself, by nature, and people started using it sort of as a park, not even realizing that it's actually a cemetery, that there are graves underneath everything where you walk, you know. Like children would go and play in the sand, but it's actually on the graves, so it's sort of strange. Also, we have a very large area that was a war hospital that is also right now abandoned. Then we have a prison in our neighborhood, and a large area that's green, but it's right next to the prism, so it's sort of prison, so it's sort of uncomfortable to be there. Also a railway with the railway station, which is, okay, it's not abandoned in itself, but it's not a very pleasant place. It's not like a cultural space. So we have these areas that the neighborhood doesn't really know how to approach them, and not everybody feels comfortable. So what we did is we made an open-air theater play, which sort of kind of showed these places to people and made them think about them and kind of look at them in another light. So here are some, how the idea started was that I knew in my house there was one neighbor who is an actor in the theater. And then he told me that two other neighbors actually work in the theater. One is like a stage manager, and wife is a stage manager, and her husband is a set designer, yeah. So I talked to them and they said, well, you know, a lot of other actors live in our neighborhood. So I started calling them, and then they would give me other phone numbers of other actors that they know in the neighborhood. So I ended up calling something like 35 theater actors that live in our neighborhood, which is actually quite a small neighborhood. And 18 of them agreed to participate in a theater play. And so my friends, my neighbors, the stage manager and the set designer, they said, okay, let's do it. We're gonna organize this. We're gonna help doing this. The name of the play was Brasa Spaks, and the idea was to involve neighbors and activists living in Brasa and in Riga in general. So the material we took for the play, so we didn't have a person who is a playwright, but what we took as the material was a Latvian epos, which, and I know also in Lithuania there's a big epos that that deals with the culture of the Lithuanians and has a big hero. So in Latvia it's Alačplēsis, and he's this hero that defeats the German dark vaders of the German army. But so the author of this epos is buried in the cemetery that's in our neighborhood, and so we took his play, his material, directly from his play and put it in a different context, in a city context. And the last word, pumpurs, so is his last name, and spaks means strength. So the name is Brasa, the neighborhood, pumpurs, who is the author of the play, and spaks as strength. And of course the idea was the strength is in the people, so it's the strength of the people. And more than 50 volunteers agreed to participate in this, additionally to the 11 professional actors. So as we didn't have a stage, we didn't have a place that's closed, so we decided just to use open air, and the set designer found these 5 places in our neighborhood that would be good to be showed to the public. And it was a cemetery, part of the cemetery. Then it was a private courtyard between 5-storied buildings. It was this part of the war hospital that's abandoned, and it was the train station, which is next to the prison. And so the way it was organized, that one actor who was from improv theater actor, he was like a guide of the group of people who were coming to see the play, and he would lead them through the neighborhood and through these 5 places where the play is showed. So it was a great success in the sense that everybody who participated really enjoyed it, both the people who watched it and the people who were taking part. So my kind of conclusion and the idea is to keep in mind was that it really helps to bring out the identity of the neighborhood. It kind of adds this additional feeling to the people who live there that, yes, this is a very special place where I'm at, and making them aware of their own surroundings. It also helps to energize people who might otherwise just sit at home, but they think, okay, it's a small part that I have to take part in this. I can do it. It's not a very complicated thing that I have to do. So, for example, some of the volunteers, what they had to do, they just had to take a empty plastic bag from the local store, like we have Rimi hypermarket. So they just had to take this plastic bag from the store, and they just had to kind of go along with the group and kind of at some points just to gather in certain places. The idea was to show that this one store, which is maybe, it's a very simple thing that you need every day, but it can also kind of gather people together. So people took part because it wasn't complicated for them to do. And they got to know each other, they got to know like that there's something happening in our neighborhood and we can participate. And also what was the result, in my opinion, is that it put a spotlight on issues that are in the neighborhood, but in a positive way. So we didn't go crying to the municipality that this war hospital is abandoned, you know, that let's do like a picket and fight for it or something like this. But some people who came to see the play, they were journalists. So after that, already one TV show was made about this war hospital, that it's abandoned and what's going to happen about it, and like the rest of the people in the city are starting to pay attention, like this object is abandoned, why, and it's historical, it has historical value, it's a beautiful place, and what's going to happen with it. And similar with the prison, because it's being closed down next month. And it's a very large space, a large building, large territory, and also it's still not clear what's going to happen with it. Is it just going to be demolished? Is it going to be made into something useful to the community, or just sold to real estate investors? So maybe a little bit about what were the challenges of the project. First of all, I think the good result of the project was because there were professionals involved. So it wasn't like amateur actors only, but also professional actors, professional set designer, professional stage director. So they really knew their stuff, what to do and how to do it to make a good result. Also, of course, we needed initial financing. So when the actual plays were running, we sold tickets to them, and the money from the tickets was to pay the professional actors who were taking part in it. But to write the whole, I don't know, scenes and to buy clothes for the actors, to you needed some stage props and things like that, so we needed initial financing. So for that, I did write to municipality like a project bid, and we got financing from that, from both the municipality and from Ministry of Culture as well. But I think to run this play again, we wouldn't need this additional, like this initial financing anymore. We could do it again. The tough part was to organize logistics, because the 11 actors that were taking part in the play are from different theaters all over Latvia, actually. So it was really hard to find just one day when all of them could take part in the play, because they have their own jobs in other theaters and there are other performances. So that was actually the toughest part. And also because it's an open air activity, so you need to realize that the natural light is changing depending on the time of the day. If it's raining, you have to kind of take into consideration the weather and the sound. Like if it's at rush hour, at some point it was hard to hear because there were a lot of cars going by, but then just 1 hour later it was wonderful because all the cars stopped. So you have to consider these things as well. So I have a little bit some pictures of what it looked like. So this is me and the set designer and the stage director. And the first picture I showed, there was one part of the play where 8 people were sitting at a long table, and they were representing the author of this epos and in his different stages of life. So that was also a very powerful image. That from childhood to old age, what was the life of the author as well. So I don't know, I also have like a small video where you can see how this is happening. It could be without sound, it doesn't matter that much. How long is the video? Like 4.5 minutes? I don't know, just a very short something. Yeah, maybe I can try to show like a very small. Okay. No. See? I will turn down the sound, and maybe if you have questions or something like this. So if you have questions in the meantime, I can tell you more. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. So you can see like like these people, they're volunteers, they're not actors, they're just taking part of it. And these are the people who are coming to see the play. So the person in front is acting as a guide. He's walking and telling the story of the neighborhood. And just the people are going like on an excursion around the neighborhood and the cemetery and so on.
Excuse me.
Yes.
One question. So, if I understand right, so your stage, all this park, all this yard or garden, or
Actually, it was the entire neighborhood. So they went. It was for 2.5 hours. The people, they went from one end of the neighborhood through the neighborhood to the other end of the neighborhood. And the play was in 5 different places of the neighborhood. So like different, how do you say, I don't know, scenes. Yeah, there were 5 scenes to the play, and they were in 5 different places. We did it 5 times. So and on each date there was 4 groups of people who could go. Like it was groups of 30 people. So basically it's something like 600 people saw the play. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation.
And it was also, I remember that it was interesting that the people would go, and in some places you couldn't understand, is it real or is it make-believe? Because in some places people would come out of the houses and would start talking to the group just randomly, or in some places suddenly you're walking by and there's like a homeless person lying there or making a campfire there, and he started talking to the group, and the group couldn't understand, is it an actor or is it just somebody who lives there? And so that was an interesting one as well. Yeah, and one of the scenes was from an apartment, so it was also kind of strange that you were coming into a courtyard where it's like sort of a private space, and from another private space, which is an apartment, somebody is showing you theater. So. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.